So, welcome to the diary of the third week of my DBT, Dialectical Behaviour Therapy. So, yeah, as I said, it's the third week, and what I'm going to do first, before I talk about what happened this week, I'm going to talk a bit more on how I built up the skills that I learnt last week. So as I said last week, it was focused a lot on mindfulness, about how to bring yourself back into the moment. And this is something that I didn't realise would be very hard for me. I think before I started, I thought mindfulness, it was all just about a meditation, which, I know I find that difficult because I find it quite boring. But it was interesting to hear about how mindfulness can affect and be used in all kinds of day-to-day situations. As I covered in the last video, as I said, it's about kind of bringing your awareness to the moment, which might be like the skills you use for that. It's trying not to be judgmental about a moment, and about making each moment effective and being aware of what your goals are for that moment. So, for example, if you're going out on a walk, you're not worrying, you're not thinking about everything else you need to do. You're not thinking about what you need to do for tea. You're not thinking about, what time you need to be up for work tomorrow. It's just about kind of focusing on that walk. So what I've tried to do is, over the last week, kind of write down things that have been happening in the moment and trying to be more aware of it. So, for example, last week I had to wait for some tradesmen to come to the house that I'm trying to sell, because I need some particular work doing on it. I had organised 4 people to come out to give quotes over about 3.5-4 hour time period. And when I was booking them, I felt I felt annoyed that I have to do it. I'm annoyed that I've had to take time. I'm already anxious that people aren't going to turn up. Just approaching it with a lot of negative, judgmental thoughts. And so when I took the time out to think, I'm going to try and be more mindful about this, and I used the description kind of method, like just describing what was happening. So a description was, it was my day off anyway, therefore I don't need to feel bad about taking time off work. The description is, the work needs doing as it is part of the sale conditions on the property. Therefore, if I don't get this work done, the sale can't go ahead. So, the description there is, it needs doing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It just needs doing. So instead of me thinking, this is going to be a waste of 4 hours, what I did was I just used that time, to prepare for what needs happening. I wrote out a list of what I wanted to talk to the tradesmen about, and the times that I was waiting for them to turn up, I tried to use that time a bit more productively, clean the car out, and sort of read a magazine. And by approaching it in a bit more of a factual manner, it meant that when the people did turn up, I was able to be more friendly to them. I was more, not positive. I'm more neutral to it. So they go, I've got to get this I was able to, just be more neutral about the situation. And, one of the worries was, people weren't going to turn up, because that is based on experience before, where I've had appointments made and then people just don't turn up without letting me know. And 2 people did do that. And instead of getting angry at it, and I did have the urge to, phone and be like, you said you were coming, rah, rah. And instead I was just like, you know what? They're obviously not going to get my business, we'll just move on and find somebody else. And another thing that I was, trying to be more mindful about is we went to the park on Saturday. We went to a food festival. Spent a bit more than I was planning on spending, but it was nice supporting local businesses. Now the lockdown was easing. And after we went around the festival, just taking some time to sit in the park and just enjoy that day. Which, it sounds very simple, but it's not something I normally do. Normally I would be like, oh right, okay, we need to get home because I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this, and this needs doing, and this needs to do this. Instead I just sat down, probably 15-20 minutes, and we was watching this dog who was adorable. Like, I think it was a little Jack Russell, and it was just chasing like people blowing bubbles. And that was nice, and it was, I did have to try really, really hard to tell myself, yeah, you are allowed to just enjoy things. You don't have to be doing something all of the time. I don't need to feel guilty that I'm wasting 20 minutes. So yeah, there was another couple of examples, and actually, I'll just tell you one more example. It's like on Tuesday, I've started going to like a Pilates session, just because I want to build up like my own strength. And at the end of the Pilates session, there was like a meditation session at the end. And, it was like kind of the traditional mindfulness that we think about, being told when to breathe, sort of, think about your body floating or, whatever. And at first I was like really annoyed. I was like, no, I've come to do, exercise, not just lie here. And I found it hard to concentrate. The music was very loud. I couldn't hear the teacher properly. And for the first couple of minutes, I'm lying here going, well, this is stupid. I can't hear, I can't do this. I could be at home, I could be on the way making tea. I could be doing this, I could be doing... You can see the theme of where my brain automatically goes. But instead of getting annoyed at it, I said to myself, I was like, no, we can use this time, to try and be a bit more mindful. And because I couldn't follow like the teacher's instructions, I decided to try and like sort of do my own. Now, one of the techniques we were sort of told about DBT, it's kind of just being aware of what your body's doing. So, I was sort of like lying there, and I was like, oh, the back of my head is touching the floor. And then just like feeling that for a few seconds, and then sort of moving sort of down the body and saying, my neck is touching the floor. My shoulder blades are touching the floor. My triceps were touching the floor. My biceps are not touching the floor. And then I'm just like, if your mind kind of wanders off, instead of being like, oh, for God's sake, you shouldn't be thinking that, you shouldn't be feeling that, just sort of acknowledging that you're thinking of it, and then just go back to what you was doing. Which, it sounds quite, sort of quite simple, but it's really hard to do when you're so used to your brain just being on a constant overdrive all of the time. So yeah, because I think like, the beginning of like last week's session, I asked, I was like, well, how can you be mindful if you haven't got 10 minutes to sit and meditate? And So what I've learned this week is you don't have to be. You can do it in each of the moments. So yeah, it was hard, but it's quite interesting. I think it is something I can practice all of the time. One of the things that I have obviously not been mindful about is my hair. We'll discuss it now. Yes, it is not what it looked like last week because Rachel has not learned patience and to be mindful about what she's actually doing. Instead, I was like, oh, I want to change my hair, I want to do this, I want to do this, I need to bleach it, and it ends up all going wrong. Bleached far too many times this side, and it was literally just falling out in clumps. And so I had to shave it off. This side, you can't really tell on the video, but it's actually gone green. It's meant to be black. And a lot of this comes down to, one of the main symptoms I was talking about, that constant changing, things about your appearance, about how you want to be. And because I'm very impulsive, I got the idea Thursday night, I'd ordered the stuff by the Friday, and literally as soon as I got home Friday, I was like, come on, we need to work on it. In hindsight, I could have ordered the stuff, I could have done it more gradual, and I should have reflected on past experience that putting bleach on your hair 5 times in a day is not healthy for your hair. But alas, I've done it. So yeah, that kind of brings us on to the diary sheet I did for last week. Hang on, just going through my paper. Yeah, so as I said, with the DBT sessions, it's kind of split into a structure. It always starts with the mindful exercise, which I'll go through now. What he was doing, he was practicing that describing skill, and so we were paired up, and we were given 2 little drawings. It was basically Pictionary, but not drawing. It was kind of describing. So I was given. Still got it. So I was given this, as you can see, is a book. But I had to describe that to my partner, but without saying what it is or making judgments about it. So it sounds really easy, but I think one of the things of having BPD is that you really struggle with communicating things, because to you, how you think is very obvious, and you kind of just assume everyone else thinks like that. So I've still got my Christmas mug with a reindeer. So for that, I was describing, it's 2 rectangles. The short side of the rectangles are at the top, so it's it's vertical facing, and there's 2 together joined in the middle. When I say joined in the middle now. When I was first doing it, I was just like, oh, it's 2 rectangles, they're joined. It's usually made out of paper. And then the other person was guessing, oh, is it a flip chart or thing? And you find it's getting really infuriating, because you're like, how obvious is this? It's a book. It's very obvious. But if I hadn't shown you that, you might not have got it until I started saying, oh, the joins in the middle. It's usually made of layers, and then they're like, oh, is it a cake, or like a layer of a cake where it's joined in the middle, and until I said it's made out of paper. There's usually about 300 layers. That's when it the other person guessed it was the book. So it was quite. like game itself is a simple concept, but it really goes to show the importance of being very clear when you're trying to describe something and communicate. It really made, because as I said at first, I'm like, God, this is obvious. How can you not be getting this? But yeah, it's just recognizing how you communicate and how other people see things different from you. So yeah, it's a simple concept, but I think it was quite effective in recognizing where those skills can be lacking. Now, a lot of the session was taken up by people's diary sheets. There's about 6 of us in the group. And, quite a few people had some very intense diary sheets, very, very intense ones. So I think, this part of the session this week went on a lot longer than it normally would. And to be honest, after listening to everyone else's, I was like, okay, maybe mine is a little bit petty. But, so basically what it was, my prompting attempt for this particular emotion was my hair had turned green. I was quite any vulnerability factors was, I spent quite a lot of money on the hair dye. I'd already been doing it all weekend, and I discovered it was green less than an hour before I had to start work, because I'd washed it off the night before, then gone to bed with my hair wet, which I know you're not supposed to do, but when you've got curly hair, what can you do about it? So yeah, I woke up and I've my hair is green. The interpretation, my hair is completely the wrong colour. So it's just been a whole load of waste of money, waste of time, complete judgments were this company's obviously fake advertising, ruin my time, just ruin everything. And yeah, I was angry, probably sort of about 50% at first, but as I said, this was early in the morning, it was about 7 o'clock. And so the first thing that I wanted to do was literally phone up and kick off, make a scene, because, well, I felt lied to. Went back on the website, re-looked at the description. I was like, that definitely says black. I looked at the instructions on the part, and I was like, I definitely followed them to a T. But their customer service lines, they didn't open till 9. So I was like, well, there's not a lot I can do. Luckily I do have a job where they didn't even bat an eyelid what colour hair it doesn't matter to them, it's not a thing. And so when I did phone them, I think I was a lot calmer, and I think that's because I had to wait that time. So because I was calm and the intensity of any immediate emotion had calmed down or reduced, I was able to use that description ability rather than being judgmental. I think if I'd have been able to phone them the minute I found out, I would have been like, you've ruined it, your website was lying, you did, you did this, I want to refund, and the anger would have just come out. Whereas because I'd had that time to kind of accept this was the deal, I described what happened, I was like, I went on the website, I read the description, I bought it, I followed the instructions, I left it on the right amount of time, however it has turned green. And then kind of what surprised me was the woman then went, oh, well, it is meant to have a green shimmer. And I was like, well, it's not a shimmer, it is, you can't tell on here, but it is green. And, I said to her, I was like, I even said, like, I understand you probably didn't write the website, so, I'm recognising it's not your fault, but it's not green. No, so it's, it didn't say on the website that it would be green. And, she just said, she said, take a couple of photos, email me the barcode number, whatever, and we'll look into it. Which I did. They haven't got back to me yet, so Manic Panic, if you're listening, I want a refund. And then, like, afterwards, I think, I spent, like, some time sort of thinking about it, and I think I recognised the thing that made me angry isn't that my hair's actually green, because it is a delightful green. I'm more angry at that's not what I paid for. That's not what I thought I was buying. And I think I'm not even angry on my behalf, because, as I said, I'm not precious about my hair. Every time I do my hair, I'm always aware something will probably go wrong. But I think I was angry, how about if this had happened to someone who wasn't as resilient about their hair as I am? Or how about if this had happened to someone whose job would not have allowed this? I was lucky, I woke up, kind of went, still went to work and I could still carry on my day. But how about if this had happened to someone who would, maybe have had to have called in sick to go and, like, then buy another dye and cover it up? So, as I said, like, the anger wasn't aimed for what I thought it was aimed at. But if I hadn't had all of this time to reflect on it, I wouldn't have known that. So yeah, I'm not angry about it now. I am a bit miffed. But, when I spoke to the lady on the phone, she was lovely, and she was like, and she even said, you are correct, it doesn't say that on the website. We'll get this looked into, and she'll then, talk to the digital team or whatever to get it fixed. So yeah, I thought it was, quite a little, sort of petty little sheet. But, one of the women at therapy, she was like, it's almost like this incident was a complete different person to the last diary sheet. And, like, a few people agree. They're like, yeah, does that, like, what, like, because, a few of us had said, like, if this had happened to them, they'd have been beyond furious. Whereas, like, the thing that happened last week that I was more angry at, they were like, that was, like, not even a 1% anger to them. And I think that the difference between the two is, I think when it comes to my hair, I always accept that it might go wrong. I've had I've had that many hair disasters. Whenever I do anything with my hair, I always preempt it with, if it goes wrong, we'll shave it off. Which I did half of that today. But the difference is just having that time to really think about why you're so emotional about it. Now, with this one, as I said at the time, it was enforced. Like, I can't phone a company at 7 a.m. if they don't open till a couple of hours later. I just can't. But I suppose it shows it's an important lesson, just how time to reflect can make a difference in your behaviour. So I think I've learnt from that to really try, if I do become emotional about anything, not to respond automatically. So I think that's going to be an interesting lesson for me to learn. Um, I suppose that lesson would have worked all over if I hadn't tried to bleach my hair 5 times in one day. The outcome might have actually been what I was intending it to be, rather than pulling the clumps out. So yeah, I think I did pretty well there. It sounds not petty, but I know it's not like a major thing. But I think if you practice skills on things that aren't major, then they'll come more natural when there is a major incident. I don't know. I'm saying that now. Who knows what I'm like at the time. Yeah. So today in therapy, there was a lot. I think because everyone's diary sheets were very intense, we didn't get to get onto kind of the theory learning side of things as quickly as we should have done. But I think I explained earlier the therapy is kind of split into 4 modules, and I kind of assumed it was going to be split equally, so 6, 7 weeks, 7, 8 weeks on each. But we did kind of the 2 on mindfulness, and this week it was starting to look at interpersonal effectiveness skills, which let me have a look. It's about prioritising short-term goals over long-term goals, and hang on a bit. No. Scrap that. One of the symptoms of having poor interpersonal effectiveness skills is when you prioritise short-term goals over long-term goals. And that can be because you've got a low tolerance for distress, or you don't consider the consequences of things in the moment. So, for example, a low tolerance for distress is if you've had a slightly bad day at work, just going, that's it, don't want that job anymore, leaving. Have I done that? Yes, I have many times. And I mean, when I say a low tolerance for distress, it could literally, I think I've used this example before, I could have had an email saying, oh, you've got a meeting at 2 o'clock. The distress is, I've assumed that meeting's going to be about a bad thing, so I have a very low tolerance for it, so I've decided to quit before I've known it. So it was a short-term goal, and the short term is not to feel anxious or stressed about this particular meeting, and I prioritise that over a long-term situation of having a job, having money, paying rent, mortgage, whatever. So yeah, it leads us to jump into situations and demand what we want now, rather than a long-term investment. The failure to consider consequences is, as simple as that sounds, we're making decisions based on what we want right that second or minute, and not thinking about what we want on a longer term. So it might be, say, if you have an argument with someone, you might have a little disagreement about a friend. Say you're meant to meet a friend at 2 o'clock, and then they don't turn up because they've been held up busy, and you go, oh, you know what, I can't be asked to be friends with you then. The consequences of that is you could lose a very good friendship. Have I done that? Yes I have, to many people. Many people. Friends, family, partners, the lot. So, yeah, that's I mean, we sort of very briefly covered that, but we haven't really gone in, into that a lot, which I think we'll probably do more on next week. And so the goals are improving your interpersonal effectiveness. It's going to be more skillful in getting what you want and need from other people. And that covers, sort of being clearer, sort of being clearer and more effective in, asking for things from other people, getting other people to take your opinion seriously, sort of being able to say no to things you don't want. So, I'd say, example for this is, like sort of, okay, with my partner, like, his work ended and, I am, well, guilty, or I do, but, and I have said to him, I'm like, you need to get a job, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, you've got to get, money because you need to pay your half of this. And, is that effective? No, because if you just go on at people, they don't want to reciprocate, they don't want to work with you. So, something I will probably need to work on with that is, I could approach this more in a, what kind of work are you looking for? Is there anything, you need me to help you with? And just approaching it in a less aggressive way. Because, I've realised, like, in the past, if I want people to do things, I am, I can be, I can be aggressive about it. I can be like, you need to do it now. Which, actually, even if we, like, refer this back to maybe the example with the hair dye, if I'd have just, like, if I'd have just phoned her and been like, your website was lying to me, you should give me a refund, you've done this, she'd have probably just gone, nah, no, I didn't do the website, I didn't do it, I didn't sell it yet. Like, I think, the more you're aggressive with someone, the more they meet you back with aggression. So yeah, it's been, I think it's been a bit more tactful, which, not my strong point, but that's why we go to the therapy. The other thing is building relationships and ending destructive ones. Now, I think I'm pretty good at ending destructive ones. The problem I might have there is what I define as destructive, because, as I said, if I meet someone and they're 5 minutes late and they haven't told me why, that's enough to end a relationship, like a friendship. If I say to someone, oh, do you want to go to the... Obviously I haven't been able to so much, in lockdown and whatever, but before, if I say, oh, do you want to go get food, and they've said no, I'm going, oh, well, you don't want to be my friend then. So I find that, I would define that as destructive. But maybe it's not. I need to work better on the building relationships. See, my thing is, I don't like building new friendships, because, one, it's a lot of effort. Two, I don't like getting to know people. I don't like people getting to know me, which I probably should. I should do, because, sometimes when you're feeling lonely or you need, like, a connection, if you haven't got those relationships to rely on to get what you need, then so, and the third goal is, like, to be able to, like, walk the middle path, and I think that's kind of just finding, I think that's just about finding, like, the middle ground in everything. It's like, so, you don't have to be, Like, not everyone has to be all yes, yes, yes. Everything doesn't have to be all no, no, no. It's about knowing which bit of that is useful to what you need. As we really didn't have much time to go into details about how to do that, so I'm sure that'll come in the next couple of sessions. But I think one of the things that I took from today is, even if you don't want to do something, it might be necessary, you might need it. And I think that comes in the relationships. I don't want to get to know loads of people. I don't want to rely on people. I don't want to be asking people for help. But, I need to learn to recognise when I do need it. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this model, because the tolerance to stress, I have none. And the considering consequences is not something I do in the heat of a moment. It's I can't really consider consequences in the moment. Afterwards, when I've had time to reflect, of course I can see it, and there's some that I regret for years and years later. An example of this is about 5-6 years ago, I had a minute argument. I don't even know if it was an argument. I don't even know what it was about. Can't remember. We had a delightful weekend away, and we was at the train station. He was going back down to Birmingham. I was coming back up north. Where I lived, we'd met in Manchester, and we'd been talking about something, just general chit chatting away, and I literally cannot remember what it was about. And he said something, and I took it completely black and white. Assumed it meant he didn't care about me, and that's it. Walked off from a relationship, and that ended. Sort of try to repair it after, but the damage was done, and all that over something extremely minor that I don't even remember what it was. That's how minor it is. So that low tolerance for distress, it was easy to be horrible and say I didn't want to be with someone than just be uncomfortable for a couple of minutes. And maybe if I had been the skills to be more mindful, I could have been okay, well, we've disagreed on that. Think about all the other things that I enjoy. And I've done that in a lot of relationships, literally one tiny thing, and I'm that's it, I'm leaving, I'm packing, I'm off, I'm gone. I do it. I have several times in the relationship I'm in now. Luckily he is more understanding. He understands I do have the borderline personality disorder, which in the previous relationships I hadn't got the diagnosis. Maybe everyone just thought I was crazy, but that's what it is. When you don't consider the consequences, you can go from being I can go from being your best friend, loving you, think you're amazing, and in a minute I hate you, never want to see you again. And that can't be nice for the other person to hear. And that's one of the main things I want to focus on. So I am very much looking forward to this module, and I will let you know next week how it's getting on.